Waiting for the right moment? That's a trap many of us fall into. I used to believe in it too. I thought if I just waited long enough, the stars would align, and everything would magically fall into place. But let me tell you, that's a fantasy. Life doesn't hand out perfect timing. It's messy, unpredictable, and often chaotic. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, waiting for the perfect wave to surf, only to realize you missed countless adventures while you stood there, paralyzed by indecision. What if I told you that the real magic happens in the messiness of action? Every day we hold ourselves back, convinced that tomorrow will be better, that the right opportunity is just around the corner. But how many tomorrows have you let slip by? Think about it. What if you could break free from that cycle? Now close your eyes for a second. Picture yourself stepping out of that shadow of hesitation. What does it feel like? The freedom, the excitement, the growth? It's time to embrace the chaos. It's time to take action no matter how imperfect. The moment is now, and it always has been. Are you ready to take that leap? If you're looking for more emotional balance, clarity in decision-making, and want to learn how to handle life better, this content is for you. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because with each video you'll grow stronger on the inside and see life with greater wisdom. The trap of procrastination. You know that feeling when you put things off, waiting for what seems like the perfect moment to dive in? I've been there more times than I'd like to admit. It's like standing at the edge of a pool, toes curled over the tile, waiting for the water to be just the right temperature. But here's the kicker, that moment never comes. The more I wait, the less likely I am to jump in at all. Procrastination becomes this insidious little companion, whispering that tomorrow will be better, that I should just relax today. Before I know it, weeks can slip by and I'm left with nothing but regrets. I used to convince myself that I was just being thoughtful. After all, isn't it wise to wait for the right conditions? But as I sat there doing nothing, I realized that the moment right is often just an excuse. The truth is, life rarely hands us the perfect scenario. There's always something off, whether it's the time, the resources, or even my mood. So what do? I throw out the notion of waiting for perfection and instead focus on the now. I remind myself that starting is always better than waiting. Strangely enough, the act of simply starting can often ignite a fire within. I've found that giving myself permission to be imperfect can lead to unexpected bursts of creativity and productivity. It's almost like breaking a seal. Once I start, I find it easier to keep going. The longer I stay in that limbo of procrastination, the more daunting the task seems. But once I take that first step, the weight begins to lift, and suddenly, that mountain feels more like a series of manageable hills. Moreover, I've learned that the thrill of action can be intoxicating. That moment when I finally decide to act is often the most liberating one. It's like the chains of procrastination fall away, and I'm free to explore my ideas. I start to ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? More often than not, the answer is not much. And the freedom that comes from taking that step is worth more than the comfort of inaction. In the end, procrastination is just a trap that I've decided to outsmart. I've started to embrace the chaos of imperfection and the beauty of taking action. That's when I truly began to live, when I stopped waiting for the right moment and just made one for myself. The myth of perfection. The myth of perfection. What a slippery concept. For a long time, I was ensnared by the idea that everything had to be just right before I could proceed. Whether it was a project at work, a personal goal, or even something as simple as cleaning my house, I convinced myself that I needed to have the perfect plan in place. But let me tell you, chasing perfection is a road paved with frustration and disappointment. The irony is that no one ever truly reaches perfection, yet we're all somehow convinced it's out there, just waiting for us. I remember spending hours tweaking a presentation, convinced that one more adjustment would make it flawless. But in the end, my audience didn't care about those minute details. They wanted my ideas, my perspective. I realized that the quest for perfection was often a distraction, pulling me away from the essence of what I wanted to communicate. This obsession with perfection can lead to a paralysis of sorts. I found myself so focused on making everything perfect that I end up doing nothing at all. It's a vicious cycle. The more I strive for unattainable ideals, the more I shy away from taking risks. Instead of allowing myself to be human, to make mistakes and learn from them, I stuck to the sidelines watching others take chances while I held my breath, paralyzed by the fear of not measuring up. Eventually, I had to confront the reality that imperfection is not just inevitable, it's also beautiful. The most memorable experiences often come from moments of spontaneity, from those times when things don't go according to plan. I've learned to celebrate the quirks and flaws, because that's where the real stories lie. I no longer wait for everything to be perfect. Instead, I focus on progress, on growth. Letting go of the myth of perfection has been liberating. I now approach tasks with a mindset of exploration rather than a need for flawless execution. I've discovered that it's okay to be imperfect, to embrace the messiness of life. It's in those moments of vulnerability that I find authenticity, and that's what resonates with others. The importance of action. Let me tell you about the magic of taking action. It's something I've come to appreciate deeply over time. You see, there's this incredible momentum that builds once you make a move, be it small or large. When I finally decide to take that first step, it's like igniting a spark that can turn into a roaring fire. The more I act, the more energy I have to continue pushing forward. I used to underestimate the power of just doing something, anything to get the ball rolling. I remember a time when I had a mountain of tasks stacked in front of me, and all I could do was stare at it in disbelief. It wasn't until I forced myself to tackle the smallest task that I felt a shift. I crossed that off my list and suddenly the rest didn't seem so daunting. It was as if I had cracked open a door to productivity, and I was eager to walk through it. Action breeds clarity too. There's something about moving that helps me see things from a different perspective. When I'm in motion, I can assess what's working and what isn't. I've learned that it's not about having all the answers up front. It's about being willing to experiment and adjust as I go along. Every little action leads to new insights, which in turn fuels more action. It's a beautiful cycle that I've come to cherish. Moreover, the act of taking action can often lead to unexpected opportunities. I can't count the number of times I've stumbled upon something wonderful simply because I decided to take a chance. Whether it's a new connection, an idea, or even a solution to a problem, the world opens up in ways I never imagined once I step outside my comfort zone. Now, I strive to be someone who acts rather than waits. I've made it a point to embrace the idea that progress, however small, is still progress. Each step I take builds upon the last, and before I know it, I'm on a path I never would have discovered if I had stayed stagnant. Action has become my ally, and I'm grateful for every opportunity it brings. Overcoming the fear of failure. Fear of failure, that old friend we all know too well. I would be lying if I said I hadn't struggled with it. The thought of falling short, of not living up to expectations, has often held me back. But over time, I've come to realize that embracing this fear is crucial for growth. Instead of letting it paralyze me, I've learned to confront it head-on. What I've discovered is that failure isn't the end of the world. In fact, it can be one of the most valuable teachers. I remember a time when I hesitated to pitch an idea at work, fearing it wouldn't be well received. But when I finally gathered the courage to share it, I found that not only was the feedback constructive, but it also opened up a dialogue that led to even better ideas. Each perceived failure actually became a stepping stone toward improvement. I've also come to understand that the fear of failure often stems from a desire for approval. I used to worry about what others would think, but I've realized that their opinions don't define my worth. I'm learning to embrace the fact that everyone stumbles. It's part of being human. When I shift my focus from seeking validation to pursuing my passions, the fear of failure begins to lose its grip on me. Another crucial lesson has been reframing my perspective on failure itself. Instead of viewing it as a negative outcome, I've started to see it as a natural part of the learning process. Each setback is an opportunity to reassess, to pivot, and to grow. I remind myself that some of the most successful people have faced monumental failures before achieving their dreams. Their stories inspire me to push through my own fears. Ultimately, overcoming the fear of failure is about resilience. It's about accepting that I will stumble but knowing that I can get back up again. I've replaced the fear with curiosity, allowing myself to explore, experiment, and learn. Each time I act despite my fears, I build a little more confidence in my ability to handle whatever comes my way. Small wins. Let's talk about the power of small wins. In a world that often glorifies grand achievements, I've come to appreciate the beauty of those tiny victories along the way. Each little step I take not only builds momentum but also reinforces my belief in my ability to succeed. It's like collecting little trophies that remind me I'm making progress, even when it feels slow. I've learned to celebrate the small wins, whether it's completing a task I've been avoiding or simply making a decision I've been mulling over for too long. These moments may seem insignificant at first glance, but they carry a weight of their own. Each time I acknowledge a small victory, I'm fueling my motivation to keep going. It's a reminder that I'm capable and that progress, no matter how small, is still worth celebrating. Moreover, small wins can have a snowball effect. When I experience even the slightest success, it ignites a sense of accomplishment that propels me forward. I become more willing to tackle the next challenge, and before I know it, I'm learning through experience. There's something incredibly liberating about learning through experience. I remember a time when I was stuck in analysis paralysis, endlessly weighing the pros and cons of making a decision. It dawned on me that no matter how much I researched or planned, nothing could truly prepare me for the actual experience itself. I had to dive in even if it felt uncomfortable at first. When I finally took the plunge, it was like flipping a switch. I started to learn lessons that no textbook could teach me. For instance, when I decided to start my own small business, I had a million questions swirling in my head. Would I succeed? What if I failed? But once I started taking action, setting up my website, reaching out to potential customers, I began to see the nuances of running a business. Each misstep turned into a valuable lesson. The beauty of experiential learning is that it fosters resilience. It's in those moments of trial and error that we discover our true capabilities. The more I engaged with my work, the more confident I became in my decisions. I realized that failure wasn't the end, it was merely a stepping stone to greater understanding. Each mistake was like a guidepost directing me toward what worked and what didn't. Moreover, experiential learning enhances adaptability. I learned to pivot quickly when things didn't go as planned. Instead of being paralyzed by fear of making mistakes, I embraced the chaos of the process. That's when I truly understood that each experience, good or bad, was a valuable piece of the puzzle. It taught me to stay flexible and open-minded, adjusting my approach in real time based on what I was learning. So if you're like I was, caught in a loop of waiting and weighing, consider this: you'll never have all the answers. The magic happens when you roll up your sleeves and start doing. Experience is the best teacher, and often, the most profound lessons come from the moments you least expect. Change and adaptation. One of the most enlightening realizations I've had is how essential it is to embrace change and adapt quickly. In my journey, I found that taking action opens doors to unforeseen opportunities and challenges. When I started my fitness journey, I had a specific plan in mind, but life threw curveballs at me. Instead of sticking rigidly to my original plan, I learned to adapt. For instance, I had a workout routine that I was excited about, but after a few weeks, I hit a plateau. Instead of feeling defeated, I decided to change things up. I explored different workout styles, tried new classes, and even incorporated outdoor activities. This willingness to adapt not only kept my routine fresh but also reignited my passion for fitness. The act of taking steps forward allows for real-time adjustments that simply can't happen when you're stuck in planning mode. I've come to appreciate the fluidity of life, how things can shift and change, and how my ability to adapt can lead to growth. It's like sailing a boat. Sometimes the wind changes direction, and instead of fighting it, you adjust your sails to keep moving forward. Moreover, adapting in the face of change fosters resilience. The more I practiced this adaptability, the more I became comfortable with uncertainty. It taught me that not everything would go according to plan, and that was perfectly okay. In fact, some of the best moments in my life came from unexpected changes that forced me to recalibrate and try something new. So, if you find yourself hesitating to act because you fear the consequences of change, I urge you to rethink that perspective. Embrace the fluidity of life. When you take that first step, you create space for adaptation and growth in ways you never imagined. The influence of environment. Have you ever noticed how your surroundings can significantly impact your motivation and productivity? I've learned that creating an environment that encourages action is crucial. When I was working from home during the pandemic, I quickly realized that my environment could either propel me forward or drag me down. At first, I set up my workspace in the living room, surrounded by distractions. My productivity plummeted. It wasn't until I carved out a dedicated office space that I began to see a shift. I decorated it with inspiring quotes, organized my materials, and eliminated distractions. Suddenly, sitting down to work felt more purposeful, and I found myself diving into tasks with greater enthusiasm. I also discovered that sharing my space with like-minded individuals could amplify my drive. I started joining co-working spaces where the energy of others motivated me to stay on task. There's something contagious about being around people who are also hustling. Their energy feeds into your own, creating a sense of community that pushes you to act. Additionally, I've learned the power of decluttering. A clean, organized space can do wonders for your mental clarity. I experimented with minimalism in my workspace, and the results were profound. Without the visual noise of clutter, I found it easier to focus and tackle my to-do list. So, take a moment to assess your environment. Does it inspire you to take action? If not, consider making changes. Whether it's rearranging furniture, adding motivational decor, or simply finding a new spot to work, your environment plays a pivotal role in your capacity to act. Defining clear goals. There's a saying that a goal without a plan is just a wish. I found this to be incredibly true in my life. When I first started setting goals, they were often vague and lofty, which left me feeling overwhelmed and directionless. It wasn't until I learned to define clear, tangible objectives that I began to see real progress. I remember when I decided to run a marathon. At first, my goal was simply to get fit. But that didn't do much for my motivation. It wasn't until I broke it down into smaller, actionable steps, like running a certain distance each week and signing up for training programs, that I started to make headway. Each small goal became a stepping stone, and suddenly the larger goal didn't feel so daunting. Moreover, clarity in goal setting brings a sense of purpose. Knowing exactly what I wanted to achieve allowed me to channel my energy effectively. I could measure my progress, celebrating small victories along the way. This not only kept me motivated but also built my confidence as I checked off each milestone. I also learned the importance of flexibility within goal setting. Life can be unpredictable, and sometimes our initial goals need to be adjusted. By allowing room for change, I found I could stay motivated even when circumstances shifted. It's about having a clear destination while remaining open to different routes to get there. So, if you're struggling to take action, consider defining your goals more clearly. Break them down into manageable steps, and give yourself the confidence to move forward. With each small victory, you'll find the momentum to keep going. The impact of a growth mindset. One of the most transformative concepts I've encountered in my journey is the idea of a growth mindset. When I first learned about it, I realized how profoundly it could affect my willingness to take action. Believing that my abilities could be developed through dedication and hard work opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me. In the past, I often viewed challenges as insurmountable obstacles. I'd shy away from tasks that seemed too difficult, fearing failure. However, adopting a growth mindset shifted my perspective. I began to see challenges as opportunities for growth. When I faced setbacks, I no longer saw them as a reflection of my worth but as valuable lessons that could propel me forward. For instance, when I struggled with public speaking, I used to avoid it at all costs. But with a growth mindset, I started taking small steps to improve. I enrolled in workshops, practiced in front of friends, and gradually built my confidence. Each time I pushed my boundaries, I became a little more adept and my fear diminished. Moreover, having a growth mindset fosters resilience. When I encounter failures, instead of feeling defeated, I now ask myself what I can learn from the situation. This shift in thinking has made me more willing to take risks and pursue new opportunities. It's amazing how a simple mindset change can lead to greater action and fulfillment in life. So, if you're hesitant to act because you fear failure, consider cultivating a growth mindset. Embrace challenges, view setbacks as learning experiences, and remember that your abilities can grow through persistence and effort. When you believe in your capacity to improve, you'll find the courage to take that first step. The resistance to change. There's something almost paradoxical about our relationship with change. On one hand, we crave it, new experiences, fresh opportunities, the promise of growth. Yet, on the other hand, we seem wired to resist it. I can't tell you how many times I've found myself stuck in a loop, feeling an urge to shake things up but then getting paralyzed by the sheer thought of stepping into the unknown. It's as if there's a little voice in my head whispering, "What if it doesn't work out?" This voice, my internal critic, often wins the battle against my desire to leap into the new. The psychological barriers that keep us rooted in our comfort zones are powerful. Fear of the unknown is a huge player in this game. We often conjure up worst-case scenarios that never come to fruition, but those imagined disasters can feel very real. It's a classic case of our brains being wired to protect us from potential threats, and unfortunately, that includes the threats posed by change. It's almost amusing when I think about it. I'm scared of getting hurt by something that hasn't even happened yet. Recognizing this pattern in my thinking has been a game changer, enabling me to question the validity of those fears instead of allowing them to dictate my actions. Another layer to this resistance is the comfort we find in routine. There's a certain tranquility that comes with familiarity. I remember a time when I was stuck in a job I didn't enjoy, but I kept telling myself, "It's comfortable. At least I know what to expect every day." It's easy to fall into that trap, where the fear of change is overshadowed by the fear of disrupting our daily lives. But the irony is that while we cling to our comfort zones, we often find ourselves feeling unfulfilled, longing for something more. I've learned that sometimes, the thrill of the unknown can be more rewarding than the safety of the familiar. Then there's the issue of identity. Change often forces us to confront who we think we are versus who we want to become. I've wrestled with this a lot. When a friend suggested I pursue a creative project, my immediate thought was, "But I'm not a creative person." That internal label kept me stuck for so long. It's fascinating how we can box ourselves in with our own definitions. The moment I started to challenge that narrative, everything shifted. I realized that stepping into new roles doesn't erase my identity, it simply expands it, allowing me to grow into a more multifaceted version of myself. Ultimately, embracing change requires a deliberate choice to act despite our fears. It's about understanding that the discomfort we feel is part of the process. I found that when I lean into that discomfort and take small steps toward change, the resistance begins to fade. It's not about eliminating fear entirely but about acknowledging it and choosing to move forward anyway. Each time I push through that initial resistance, I feel a little more empowered, a little more confident in my ability to navigate the unpredictable waters of life. The power of discipline. Discipline is one of those words that can feel heavy, almost daunting. It conjures images of rigid schedules and unyielding rules, and honestly, I used to shy away from it. But as I've navigated various life experiences, I've come to see discipline in a different light, not as a set of constraints but as a framework that supports my goals. It's about creating habits that set me up for success rather than waiting for the elusive right moment to act. One of the most powerful realizations I had was that discipline doesn't have to be about perfection. It's more about consistency and commitment to the process, even when the motivation wanes. I remember setting out to exercise regularly. Initially, the idea of hitting the gym every day felt overwhelming. But what if I just committed to showing up, even if it was for a short time? That shift in perspective made it easier to stick to my goal. I learned that discipline is about making a choice each day to prioritize my commitments, no matter how small the action might seem. Establishing daily habits has been transformative for me. Whether it's dedicating time to read, write, or work on a personal project, having those anchor points in my day creates a sense of stability. It's like building a muscle. The more I practice discipline, the stronger it becomes. I've also noticed that when I create a routine, it alleviates decision fatigue. I don't have to wake up each day and wonder, should I work on my project today? My habits provide a clear path forward, allowing me to conserve mental energy for other tasks. Of course, there are days when the temptation to procrastinate creeps in. I've learned that it's okay to acknowledge those moments without letting them derail my progress. The key is to return to my habits, to remind myself of the commitment I made to my goals. I often find that taking even the smallest action can reignite my motivation. Whether it's writing a few sentences or going for a quick walk, those little victories can break the cycle of inertia and help me regain momentum. Ultimately, discipline is about aligning my actions with my values and aspirations. It's not always easy and there are days when I falter. But I've come to appreciate that discipline is a practice, not a destination. Each time I choose to act, I'm reinforcing my commitment to my goals, and that, in itself, is a victory worth celebrating. It's a journey of continuous growth, where each small step leads me closer to the life I envision for myself. Celebrating the process. In a world that often prioritizes results over the journey, I've found immense value in celebrating the process. It's easy to get caught up in the end goal, to fixate on what success looks like and forget the small victories along the way. I'm guilty of this myself. I've spent so much time chasing after outcomes that I've overlooked the richness of the experience itself. But as I've started to shift my perspective, I've realized that the journey holds just as much, if not more, significance than the destination. Every step I take toward my goals is a moment worth celebrating. I've learned to acknowledge the effort, the learning, and the growth that happens along the way. For instance, when I embarked on a new project, I made it a point to recognize each milestone, no matter how small. Completing a draft, receiving feedback, or even just showing up consistently to work on it, each of these moments deserves recognition. It's a way to cultivate gratitude for the process and to remind myself that progress is not always linear. Celebrating the process also helps to build resilience. When I focus solely on the end result, setbacks can feel discouraging. However, when I take the time to appreciate the journey, those setbacks become part of the narrative, a narrative filled with lessons and growth. I've come to see challenges as opportunities for learning rather than roadblocks. Each stumble is a chance to refine my approach, to gather insights that will serve me later. This shift in mindset has made the journey more enjoyable, allowing me to embrace the ups and downs with curiosity rather than fear. Moreover, celebrating the process fosters a sense of community. Sharing my journey with others, whether friends or fellow creatives, has been incredibly rewarding. I've found that when I openly discuss my experiences, the highs and lows, I not only inspire others but also receive encouragement in return. There's something powerful about collective celebration. It creates a sense of belonging and reminds us that we're all in this together, navigating our own paths with similar struggles and triumphs. Ultimately, I've realized that the process is where the magic happens. It's where I discover new aspects of myself, where I confront my fears, and where I grow in ways I never anticipated. So, I've made it a priority to celebrate the journey, to find joy in the everyday actions that lead me to my goals. It's a reminder that life is not just about the finish line but about the experiences and connections we make along the way. Each step is worthy of recognition, and in honoring those moments, I find a deeper sense of fulfillment in the pursuit of my dreams. The power of community. There's something undeniably powerful about being part of a community, especially when it comes to taking action and pursuing our goals. I've often found that the support of others can be the catalyst that propels me forward, especially during moments of doubt or hesitation. It's like having a safety net. Knowing that I'm not alone in my journey makes all the difference. When I think about the times I've made significant strides, I can trace those moments back to the encouragement and support I received from my community. Being surrounded by like-minded individuals creates an environment that fosters action. I remember joining a local writing group, initially feeling apprehensive about sharing my work. But as I began to engage with others who were also navigating their creative paths, I felt a sense of camaraderie that motivated me to take risks. We shared our struggles, celebrated our successes, and held each other accountable. The collective energy was infectious, pushing me to write more consistently and to embrace the vulnerability that comes with sharing my work. Accountability is another key aspect of community that I've come to appreciate. When I set goals, having a group of people who check in on my progress provides an extra layer of motivation. It's easy to let myself down, but when I know that someone else is rooting for me, it creates a sense of responsibility. I've experienced this firsthand in various group settings, whether it's through workshops, online forums, or even just casual meetups with friends. The simple act of sharing my goals with others can reignite my commitment to them. Moreover, communities often provide a wealth of knowledge and resources that can be invaluable. I've learned so much from others' experiences, insights, and guidance. As we wrap up our journey today, I want you to take a moment and reflect. When was the last time you let fear hold you back? Think about that. Every second spent waiting for the perfect moment is a second lost. The Stoics taught us that we can't control external events, but we can control our responses. So, I challenge you, what small action can you take today that moves you closer to your goals? Picture this. You wake up tomorrow and instead of hitting snooze, you leap into action. What would that look like for you? What fears might you conquer? Remember, progress often comes from imperfect action. Each step you take, no matter how small, shapes your path. Now, I want to hear from you. What's one thing you've been putting off? Share it in the comments below. Let's hold each other accountable. And if you found value in this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights on Stoicism and personal growth. Together, we'll break those chains of hesitation and step boldly into the life we envision. So, what's stopping you? Let's take action starting now.